All right, good afternoon. This is the Outlook tips and tricks training today. And down at the bottom of the first page is the URL that will take you to these slides, so you can come back and look at those later. This is me. That's kind of a blurry picture. I'll have to get a better picture. So today we're going to go through some of the basics of Outlook. I think most people are pretty good at using Outlook, but we're also going to go over some tips and tricks, I hope, that will help you to use it more efficiently and maybe simplify some of your common tasks. We're a small enough group, so if you have questions, feel free to unmute and ask your question, or you can put things in the chat and I'll watch for that and get back to it when I have a break. But anyway, so let's go ahead and get started. So like everything we do in Microsoft 365, there's actually 3 different versions of Outlook that you could be dealing with. You could have the traditional Outlook 2016 or even 2019 application installed on your machine. There's a Microsoft 365 version of it, and there's a Microsoft 365 web version. They all have the same basic features. I'm going to use the 2016 version for my demonstrations because that's how most of you are running on your college machines, but you may have to look around, but you'll find these same features. Most of the things I'm going to talk about, you'll find in all the versions. So Outlook has really 4 main functions: email, calendar, contacts, and tasks. And so I'm going to go through each of those and share some little things that you might not have been aware were there. So email, that's what we're all using. Everybody is pretty familiar with that. Down at the bottom, there's the 5 icons there, and the left one, that's your email one. I think you're all pretty comfortable, but I have a few things that I can show you in email. So we're going to look at ways to organize your email archives. We're going to talk about searching for email. We're talking about finding that attachment. I don't know if you're like me, there's always some attachment I'm looking for. And so I'll show you how to find that. Some things to deal with spam. I will talk about the quick steps function, which is kind of a little white box in the middle of this top of the screen that you may not have seen before or paid much attention to. I'll talk about mail rules, and then we'll talk about how to safely send mass emails. So as far as the email archives go, on the left-hand side of your Outlook screen, you have your mailboxes there. You have your inbox, and that's probably where most of you deal most of the time. There's a folder for sent items and a number of items there. And so one of those is archives. And archives is a place where you can store emails that you want to keep, but you don't want to leave them in your inbox. If you're like me, my goal is to get to inbox 0, where I have nothing in my inbox except perhaps they've all dealt with them all. I either archived them, deleted them, whatever. So that's my goal, is to get to that. So one way to get there is to have an archive. So emails that you think you're going to need later, you can store in the archive, and then you can pull them out. And so the nice thing is you can create subfolders in that archive. So you can have different folders for different kinds of emails, and you can store them in a logical manner. And so here's what my Outlook looks like. And so I have a number of folders there in the archive. And so you just right-click on the folder, and you can bring up and create a new folder, give it a name, and then when you are working with your email and you want to save something, you just drag it from your inbox into that folder, into that archive folder, and so then you've got it there. And if you want to find that email, you can click on that archive folder and pull it out, and you'll see the list of those emails, and you can find them when you're looking for. So using your archive is a great way to kind of keep your mailbox organized. And it's I know people that have 35,000 emails in their inbox, and it's pretty tough to find things. So kind of using that archive function is a good way to do that. So when I'm in there on the archive, I right-click. The little contextual menu comes up. The one at the top is new folder. And then you type the folder name, and now that will appear on the menu. You will notice there's a lot of other options here too, which I'd like to point out. You can rename a folder, make a copy of it. You can delete everything in a folder. So if it was for a project that you don't need anymore, you can delete them. They're up at the top is your favorites. And so if there's one folder you're using all the time, you can make sure that's up in your favorites. You can also take an archive and make a PDF out of it, which I thought was really a cool feature. So if you had a project that you'd worked on, you're kind of done with that project, you can take that archive folder, generate a PDF from it, save the PDF, throw the emails away, and it's a good way to kind of keep things organized. So that's the archive. If you need to search for email, up at the top, there's that search box, and you kind of type in what you're trying to find, and then you can scroll through. You can go to the results. It's a lot easier than scrolling through 30,000 emails trying to find the one you're looking for. And the search is really good. You can put a person's name, you can put the subject of the email, you can put an email address, you can put even an email domain, words out of the message itself. You can also specify which mailboxes you want to search in. And you can have multiple search terms. So you can have like a person and then maybe a word out of the subject. So if you're trying to find a very specific message, you can have more things in that search box just than the name of the person. By default, you're going to search your current folder, which is typically your inbox. So you may need, if you have archives, you may need to change that to all mailboxes in order to search through the rest of your mail messages to find them. So here's an example of a search. I put in the terms access request. And so you'll notice that it looks for, in this case, both of those words. It looks for either access or request. And so I have messages that came up with either one of those words. If I was looking for that exact phrase, I can use quotes around it. So I could have access request included in quotes, and then it would look for just that exact phrase. Also, I think is kind of cool is that it highlights in yellow those keywords. And so you can kind of see what is it about that email that popped it out. Also, over the right-hand side, you'll notice there's the paperclip there. So that tells you that those items have attachments. There's one down near the bottom that has an exclamation point. So that was an urgent message. So in looking at those results, you can kind of see which ones, maybe have that attachment you're looking for, or which ones were perhaps a little more urgent. So when you're looking for attachments, a really nice way to do that is when you're in that search, one of the options is the sort order. And so by default, it's date. But also one of the options is attachments. And so what that will do is that will put the attachments up at the top. What was your question, Ginger? Just go ahead and ask it since I can't see the chat.
Sure. So I noticed after I search for something in certain email, I use the search box, I have a bunch of emails come up and I find some that I want to move over to folders while I'm looking. And while you're in search, you can't seem to move an email to a folder. It's like you have to go back out. I've tried right clicking and clicking on move, and I've tried just dragging it, and I can't get either way to work to move emails while I'm in search. I'm wondering if that's a common problem or if there's a way around that without going back out and finding the email when you're in your inbox.
I've never run into that before. Yeah, it does.
I've tried it several ways, and
I'm kind of doing it on my other screen there.
Yeah, I've Googled it too, and I just can't seem to find a solution to that.
Well, actually, I think what's happening is it's actually working, but what's happening is it's still in that search result. It's in that search result in a different folder. So like when I use the move option, it actually moved the email, but it stays in the search results because I'm still searching for it out of all my mailboxes. It's still finding it from that other mailbox.
Oh, I see. Okay. So maybe go out and look and make sure it did move to that.
Yeah, make sure it moved, but I think it does. It looks, because I just did a quick test on my other screen here, and it looks like it moved to the archive, but it still shows in my search results. If you search for it again and you're in your current folder, it wouldn't show up the second time.
I see. Okay, because I'm still seeing it in my search.
Right, doesn't mean it didn't move.
Got it. Okay, thank you, Dave.
Sure.
Hey, David, are you saying that once it's in the archive, you have to specifically assign that as the search area if you're looking for something?
I believe so, because if you're in your inbox and you're searching, if it's under current mailbox, you're not going to find it. But if you say all mailboxes, it will search in your archive as well.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. So, so the finding the attachment thing is, like I said, when you're doing a search, just change from the default behavior, which is by date, to by attachments. And what that will do is that'll put all your attachments at the top. And so that's an easy way to find one of those attachments you're looking for. So dealing with spam, we all get some. We all get plenty of it. There is, we have a couple of things that are out there protecting you from spam. We have our Barracuda email firewall, which is our first line of defense for spam. And it will recognize spam and it won't deliver it to you, so you won't know that you would have received it otherwise. The other thing is that Microsoft 365 has the ability to identify spam as well. But what it will do differently is it will put it into your junk mail box. And so when spam comes in that Microsoft recognizes as spam, it'll stick it in the junk email box. Of course, some spam still gets through. We all get some. The spammers are getting smarter all the time. But you do run into circumstances where maybe there was a spam message that wasn't really spam. It ended up in my junk folder, but for some reason it wasn't actually spam. And so what you can do if you go into your junk email and you find that email that's not really spam, you can right click on the message and then you pick junk. And then within junk there is the option not junk. You also have some options as far as never block sender, never block the domain, or never block this group or mailing list. So those are ways that you can, number one, tell the system it's not junk, and then prevent that person's emails from ending up in the junk folder in the future. So that's a nice way to and I do recommend from time to time you take a peek in your junk email folder, because you may find things in there that you would have wanted. And especially if somebody says, hey, did you get that email about such and such, and you don't remember seeing it, that's the first place to check, is in your junk email. So what if you find spam in your email box and you want to prevent that from happening in the future? So same thing, if you right click on that message, there's a junk folder there, and then there is block sender. And at that point, that person won't be able to send you email in the future. All their email will just go straight into your junk email box.
Hey Dave, I have a question. A lot
Sure.
of the unsolicited emails I get, like every morning I'll get like 10 or 15 emails that I just delete from vendors. Is there a risk to clicking on the unsubscribe at the bottom of those emails? Could that expose us to something?
Yeah, what it does do is it tells them that you're a real email address. So in the case of, I think, most of the vendors you're probably getting email from, that's okay, because they're using Constant Contact or some other kind of a system that respects, that unsubscribe. If you get, more obscure, things like people trying to do bad things, they may have it unsubscribed too, but all that does is tell them that you're a real email address. And so
if it's something as a vendor I don't recognize at all, I should use this block sender function.
Yeah. If it's a respected vendor, the unsubscribe will probably work and they won't bug you anymore. But this way, you don't have to worry about them.
Great, thanks.
Dave, I'm looking back and forth on your presentation and on my email. I can't figure out how to send an email that's coming to my email to convert it to have it go to junk email. How do you do that again?
Okay, so that's what's on the screen right now. So I've got that message down there from Shazad Mirza, and
Okay.
so I right clicked on that with the right mouse button, and that brought up this little contextual menu.
Okay.
And then you'll find junk there, and then you can block sender.
Okay.
And that means all of his feature mail will go to junk.
Okay. Thank you.
And you'll notice too, there's a bunch of other options there. We'll talk about some of them as we come along, but that is a good way if you need to reply to a message or forward it. You can literally right click on that message and that brings up this little contextual menu. And it's a quick way to kind of maneuver around. So up at the top of your screen, you'll see a little box and it says quick steps. And so those are kind of one-click functions and you can customize them. And typically the first time you use them, it may ask you to configure it, but there's some cool things up there. So in my previous job, we used Google, and so one of the functions we had there was reply and archive. So like when I got an email, I would reply to it and it would archive that original message, and it was all kind of one step. And so it was kind of a nice workflow. And so as I try to get to my zero inbox, that's a nice way to do that. And so I decided I wanted a quick step. And so what I did is I went up there and I did a new quick step. And so I named it reply and archive. And so then I got to pick my actions. So my first action was I wanted to reply all, which I'll have to check and make sure that I want to actually reply all, but in most cases I probably do. Then I want to move it to a folder, in this case my archive folder. And then I want to mark the original email as read, just in case it didn't get that way. So if I wanted more actions, I use that add action button. I can kind of move my way down there. If I wanted to delete one of these and kind of refine it, I can use the little X at the right to delete them. But I can basically kind of customize what I want this to do. You'll notice also down at the bottom, it has a shortcut key. So I can use Control-Shift-1, and that will automatically, if I've highlighted a message, I have it open, I hit Control-Shift-1, that automatically opens a reply and sends that message to the archive. And so that's just an example of the kinds of things you could do there. I go back and show that original picture. So like there's an archive button there. I have my department, I have the IT team there. So if I want to open a message to my team, I can just click on that IT team. It opens up a message and preloads all their email addresses there. The to manager option is one that's a default. So you can set your manager's email and click on that. It'll open up an email to your manager. And so anyway, you can kind of customize those and decide what you might be able to do, but it's kind of a workflow tool. If there's things you do all the time, it can save you a few clicks anyway. So mail rules. Mail rules are really cool in that you can control what happens to your incoming email. So maybe you're on a mailing list that you like the mailing list, there's good content there, but sometimes there's just too many messages coming in on a day, and so you don't want to have to deal with them. You want to go look at them tomorrow or next week. And so one thing you could do is you could create a mail rule that would take all those mailing list emails and throw them into a folder, and then you could go look at that folder whenever you wanted. Or maybe you're tired of my newsletters and you want all my newsletters to automatically go in the trash. You could set up a mail rule to do that. So the way mail rules work is up at the top, you see rules. And then you'll notice the top two choices there. So that had to do with the email that I had. The email that I was in when I clicked on rules. It was an email from Mac to me and Eileen. And so automatically it just sort of says, okay, do you want to create a rule for messages from Mac or the messages that are going to Eileen? And so I could just pick one of those and just pick, then I could create my rule. But in this case, I want to be more specific. And so if I go to create rule, it brings up the little box to the bottom there. And so then I can use the checkbox and I can say, okay, all emails from Mac or all emails that contain this subject. Or I can click on advanced options and there's actually a lot more detail. Things like all messages where I'm in the CC field, or anyway, there's a ton of options under that advanced options. And then once I've decided, okay, what's my criteria for making this rule happen, then I decide what happens. What does my rule do? So I could display a little alert window could pop up. So every time Eileen emails me, I could make an alert window pop up. I could play a sound, and I could move it to a folder. I wouldn't do that to Eileen, but if somebody else's emails, I could move them to the junk email folder, or I could do something else with them. And again, in setting those, there's advanced options there that give you a lot of control over what happens to that message. So just keep in mind though, when you create a mail rule, that rule is running until you turn it off. And so if you accidentally make a mail rule that says throw all of Dave Johnston's emails in the trash, they're all going to go in the trash. And so you just have to be kind of careful in setting your rules. You don't want to make your rules too general to get more messages than you want. Also, if I was going to do an email rule that deleted messages, I would probably have it put them in a folder first, and I'd run that rule for a week or two to make sure that, okay, it's really doing what I want it to do before I would start deleting messages. But anyway, mail rules are a great way to kind of keep track of things. So here's the example. So this is the selection criteria from the advanced rules. So things like sent only to me, my name is in the to box, it's my name's in CC, it has specific words in the body. So you can check multiple check boxes there. So I could say, I only want mail from Mac, or I'm in the CC that has, you know, the words zebra in the message body, and make a mail rule associated with that. And when you do the second part of it, what happens to it, step 2 also, or step 3 also has very detailed options there as well. So it's a great
Dave?
way. Yes.
I'm sorry. I'm looking for where that mail rule, how to find that on my view. I'm using the Outlook view. So I don't know if, I'm assuming that's located
So you're
somewhere else.
using the web Outlook, or you're using
Yeah,
Office 365? Let's see.
I think that's what I'm using.
Did you go to Outlook.com or Office.com to get there?
Hold on. Yeah, outlook.office365.com.
Okay.
And actually, I don't like using my email with this view, but I don't know how to convert it to the view that I used to have.
Well, if you go into all Outlook settings, you can bring it up on the gear in the upper right.
Oh, okay.
Where do you go?
Gotcha. So up in the up at the right hand corner, up at the top, there's a little gear.
Uh-huh.
So if you click on that, and down at the bottom it says View All Outlook Settings.
Oh, okay.
You click in there.
Mm-hmm.
Then the fourth one down is Rules.
Oh, okay.
So that basically gets you the same thing we were just doing on the Office 365 version.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. So rules are cool. Okay, safely sending mass emails. So if you've ever seen one of those constituent emails where somebody sends an email out to all the groups, and then that's followed by 37 replies to the entire group, and so you're just you're being bombarded with all these replies of, hey, congratulations, or thank you, or whatever. So if you're going to send mass emails, I really recommend you use the BCC field instead of the to field. And so if you put all your groups in BCC, that way if someone does a reply all, it only goes to you and it doesn't go to everyone on the list. And so that's just a nice way to send those. Also, if you're not using a constituent group, but you're sending to a bunch of students, if you use the BCC field, then they don't see who else got the message. They only see that they got the message. It's just a nice way to kind of not let other people see all the emails for all the people that received that message. So I really like the BCC field. So questions about email. All right, you'll have more chances. So let's talk about the calendar. So the calendar, that's the next little icon down there at the bottom. I think everybody kind of is comfortable with the basic features, but let me show you a few more interesting things in the calendar. We're going to talk about a Zoom plugin. I'm going to show you the scheduling assistant. I'm going to talk about sharing calendars and then searching your calendar. So the Zoom plugin is something that you'll have to open a help desk ticket to get. But once you have it, it lets you, as you're scheduling an appointment, create the Zoom meeting at that exact same moment. So down here at the bottom of the screen, I did a new appointment, and then I have up at the top, schedule a meeting Zoom. So I click on that, and then that brings up a little Zoom box. I pick my options in Zoom, I say continue, and then I'm automatically got my Zoom meeting scheduled. I put the rest of the details in. I add the people I'm inviting to the meeting, just like any other meeting, but the Zoom stuff gets pre-filled in. So it saves you that step of having to go create the Zoom separately, copy the invitation, paste it back in the email, and that sort of thing. So I kind of like it. So if you would like that, and you're using the 2016 or 2019 version of Office, you can open up a help desk ticket, and the team can help you do that. The scheduling assistant. So this is something, if you've ever had to schedule a meeting for a bunch of people, that all have complex schedules. How do you find out when they're available? And so, people do doodle polls. People email everybody and say, okay, tell me what days you're available, and I try to find one that works for all of you. And it's really a pain. And so the scheduling assistant will let you take care of that. It allows you to actually look at a group of people and see when their busy and free times are so that you can make an appointment. And so if I'm in Outlook and I'm scheduling a meeting, if I create a new meeting, up at the top, I'll see Scheduling Assistant. So when I click on Scheduling Assistant, what it does is it gives me the option to enter all the people that I want in my meeting. And so I was included by default, and so I just added CJ and Tim. I added my whole department. And then as an optional attendee, I put Eileen. And so now what it does is lets me see all of the calendars for these people. And now you'll notice some people I can see like text from their meeting, and other people it just looks blank. So what the difference is people that share their calendar with me, I can see their details. And so in this case, Lois and Eileen both share their calendar with me, so that's why I can see some of the details about their calendar. Whereas Doug and CJ don't share their calendars with me. I'll have to fix that. But anyway, so I can't see any of their details. I can just tell when they're available and when they're not available. So you can do this for everybody, and as long as they use their calendar, you can see when there are good times to have a meeting. And so I found, okay, it looked like 3 o'clock was a good time, and so I blocked that time off. I click done at the top, and I can fill in the rest of my invitation, like I would normally fill it in with what the meeting's about, all that. And I've got my meeting scheduled without having to do a doodle poll or email everybody and ask them when their available times were. And as long as everybody, keeps their calendar updated, it's a great way to do that. So I really like that. And so then once I've got that scheduled, and I fill in the details like always, click on send, and away I go. I've just scheduled my meeting. So sharing calendars. So there, if you're working with people frequently and you need to make meetings with them, sharing calendars is a great way to do that. So you can share your calendar with others here at the college. You can actually share your calendar via email, and you can even publish your calendar online. So to share with others here at the college, when I'm in my calendar, up at the top there is share calendar. And so then I put in the recipients who I want to share my calendar with. And then I can select the detail level. So I can have just the availability, kind of what they get already, basically, that whether I'm available or not. But there's levels of detail, like whether they can see like the subject of the meeting and that sort of thing. And so you can pick the detail level that you want. You can also, there's a checkbox there for request their permission to view their calendar. So you can check that, and then they would also be able to share their calendar with you if they'd like. And then you click send, and when you do that and they go into their email, they'll have an email. They click on that, and then they can see your calendar, you've now shared your calendar with them. You can also share a calendar via email, which is kind of cool. So there's the option email calendar up at the top. You select the date range as well as the detail level, and then it generates the printed calendar like at the bottom there, which is kind of cool. And that just gets put into an email, and you can send that to somebody. So if somebody was asking about, meeting on a certain day or a certain week, you could create a printed version of your calendar and email it to them, and then they could see when you would be available within that time period. And then you can actually publish your calendar online. If there was, I'm trying to think of a reason why you might want to do that, but I suppose there could be. If you're working with external people that you wanted to be able to have them see your calendar, I suppose. But it will generate a web page link as well as an ICS file. An ICS file is a file used within calendar systems. And so if I were to send an ICS file of my calendar to somebody external, they could load that into their calendar program, and then they'd be able to have my calendar as one of their calendars there. So, so anyway, that's how that works. Basically, you just do the shared calendar or publish calendar option, and then it gives you the ability to publish a calendar. And you can pick, again, which calendar if you have more than one, and then what level of detail that you click on the publish, and it'll give you back two links. One is the web page link, and one is an ICS link. So that's what that's about. So searching your calendar, you know, it happens to me all the time. When was that meeting? You know, it was in March, I think, and then, you know, that was COVID. I don't know what happened. So up at the top, there's a search box, and so you can use the search box just like in our email. You can search for, you know, for terms up there. So in this case, I searched for technology committee, and so then all of my past and future technology committee meetings came up there, and so then I can click on any one of those items. That'll open up that calendar event, and so I can see more of the details about it. But if you need to find a previous calendar item, this is a great way to do it. Or if, you know, if something is coming up that you can't remember when that meeting was, this is pretty helpful. All right, any questions about calendar? Again,
Yeah, you were convincing me to go back to the desktop version because most of those features are not in 365.
the scheduling assistant is.
Where is that?
It's up on the top, because actually the pictures I showed you, that was 365, because I stole that from a previous training I did. So that's actually the Office 365 online version. So if you create a meeting, right up the top, you should see scheduling assistant.
So if you create a new event.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. I do see it
Yep.
now. Okay, thank you.
Sure. All right, contacts. This is the two little people at the bottom of your screen. This is probably something that not a lot of people use, but there are some interesting features in here that you might be want to take a look at. So we're going to look at how to access the global address book, how you create contacts for people and for groups, how you can use those contacts as aliases in your email, how you can share contacts, and then how you can actually get to the mail merge function from within your contacts. So if you click at the top in the Office 2016 version anyway, there's address book. If you click in address book, you have some options. The default is a local copy of the college's address book. The global address list, that's actually a live copy of our Active Directory, which is the master database of all computer users here at the college. And so you can actually search that and find out information, you know, just by typing a name in the search box. So for example, I looked for Dave and then part of my last name. So this is what came up. I saw Dave Johnson up there at the top. If I click on him, I get the box at the bottom. So that has the detail level of the information we have in Active Directory. As you see, we don't fill out everything in Active Directory, but we have key fields in there like a title, which is probably helpful. But it has their email address on the email address tab, and so you can find out, you know, who is that person. There's somebody named Joe, and I can search for Joe. I find all the Joes, and then I could find the one that I'm looking for. So I think the more interesting thing within here is being able to create contacts for people and groups. So on the file menu in the address book, there's click new, there's new entry, and then you can do new contact, and then you can type in their contact information. And once you do that, you click save and close at the top, and what you've done is you've created this new contact. And so I have one here that I just created, Bob Smith. And so I have all Bob's contact information there for the future. What I think is even more interesting is creating a group. So like I have the technology committee. And so instead of having to remember all the names of all the people that are on the technology committee, I can create a technology committee group, put all those people on it, and then I can email that group, and that will send that message to everybody. And so here's how you do that. So the same thing within the address book, new entry, and then you do a new contact group. You give it a name, and then you add your members. And so I'm searching for my members. I'm creating my cool kid group. And so I've got one member in there, Joe, and I'm going to add Ulysses. And so once I've got all my members in, then I go ahead and click on save and close. And then I end up with my group. So now the really cool part is that now that I've added my contacts, I can just type part of their name and that will come up as a destination. So in this case, my cool kid group, I type my space C, my cool kid group comes up, I click on that, and then that will send an email automatically to the members of that group, which in this case are Joe and Ulysses. And again, with the technology committee, I can type in, technology, and that will come up. I can click on technology committee, and then the email automatically goes to all the people in that committee. So it's a nice way to kind of maintain your own little mailing list for people that you're emailing on a frequent basis. So sharing contacts. So same thing within the contacts. If you right click on a contact, one of the options is share, and then I can share that contact, and that could send in an email. So this would be if it's probably not something you'll do as often, but if I want to share that mailing list, I could. Or if I had a contact for a vendor that I put in there and I need to share that, I could share that. It would send it as a mail message with that contact information. They could double click on it and bring that into their contacts as well. So within the contacts window, there's also a mail merge function. And so if you have in your contacts, you can, pick all the contacts, and you can, create either a new document or take an existing document. You can, whether you want to save that contact data for later. In this case, I've set up an email message, but basically what it does is it opens Word to do the mail merge, just like if you had done the mail merge from within Word. But the kind of cool feature is you can use your contacts within Outlook as the source for that mail merge. So that's kind of interesting. Okay, and then last but not least is tasks. Tasks has kind of a fairly simple task list. It has some interesting features. You have the task list, but there's a special group which they call to-dos, which I guess would just be sort of your to-do list. And tasks are items that can be yours. You can assign them to others, or you can share them. So we're going to look at creating and managing tasks, assigning tasks to others, and then how you can add notes to your tasks. So when you're in the tasks screen, you can create a to-do or a task by clicking on to-do or task over there on the left. And then in the empty spot in kind of the top of if you look down at the bottom little screen here, you'll see there's kind of a click here to add a new task. So I just start typing in there. And so I can put my new task in, and I can also click new task at the top left, you get the top kind of view there. But either way, you can go ahead and create a new task. Once you've got that task in place, so I had a task, create slides for Friday's training. There's a little checkbox to the left I can use to mark it done. If I right click on it, it brings up a number of options there. So I can forward a task, I can mark a task complete, I can assign the task, I can rename it, I can categorize it, I can add follow-up. So there's a number of options there for dealing with my tasks. If I want to assign a task to others, once I've got that task created, I've got the assign task option there, and so I can assign that to someone. I can set deadlines. I can put that it's maybe 50% done, so I can put what part of the status or what part of completion is done. There's a bunch of statuses there, like started, like stuck, different kinds of status you can add there. So you can go ahead and create a task and assign it to others. It gets emailed to them. You put their name in the to box, and you send that to them, and so they'll get an email back, and that's kind of how you send that task to them. It really looks a lot like a calendar event if you've looked at that before. When you've got a task, you can add notes to them. So in this case, I added the make them exciting and beautiful as far as my slides go, and I'm sure these were. But you have the ability there to add kind of notes and details about your task. All right, and that was what I wanted to share with you today. So other questions? So again, down at the bottom is the link for the slides. So if you want to go back to the slides later and take a look at those. And there's a valuation form. So if you would maybe take a picture of this, or if you grab the slides, get the evaluation form and fill that out. Just kind of give me some feedback on the training and whether it met your needs or whether you had other things you were hoping I was going to talk about or other trainings that you'd like to see in the future. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great
Awesome.
day
Thank
and
you.
enjoy your
Valuable.
weekend.
You too.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.